Hi, sweet friends. I'm Emma Watterson, hostess of Root Tips to Wingtips Health Podcast, where you'll learn recipes and health tips to stay balanced and have a healthy mind, body, and soul. I'm a certified health coach and specialize in NLP, hypnotherapy, energy work, and healing. Each week, we will dive into health topics to discuss ideal mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. Let's jump in.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Root Tips to Wingtips podcast. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing and spending time with my wonderful friend Regina Gerstman. She's a former professor of human development. She taught at Southwest Texas University and Christopher Newport University. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's a widow of 9 years. She's a former caretaker for her mother. She has a book coming out next year about new approaches to death and dying. She's been studying metaphysical theory for over 20 years. She's been part of a wisdom circle with the Carl Jung Society. She's also working on new rules for great self-care and loves to exercise at the gym and sing in her choir. So welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today.
Oh, it's my great pleasure to see you and speak with you, Emma.
Well, wonderful. Well, so you have such a diverse and beautiful background. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your upcoming book that's coming out next year.
Thank you. It's a good place to start by asking people, what is really one of the biggest taboo subjects we have in our culture, and it is the fear of death, and that's because of our fear of it. And I wrote this book temporarily called Blossom, or The Art of Sacred Dying, because this woman who befriended me 2 to 3 months later got literally a death sentence, which she handled in a completely different way. And I thought, the world needs to know about this story. This is so different. And how should we handle the information of a terminal diagnosis, such as pancreatic cancer? And that is about all you hear on death and dying in this book. It is small. Because a quick read, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if someone wants to take their time and think. After each chapter, there are little vignettes, little stories of my meetings with her, somewhat like Tuesdays with Maury, but that was more a traditional death and dying course. This was about our conversations, and she did not handle the fear of death in the usual way because she wasn't afraid. She had no fear of death. She accepted her diagnosis as a part of life. She never even thought about it again. She committed to living as full of a life as she could for the time she had remaining, to never complaining about it. Well, I don't know if she had to decide about that. That was natural for her. Her attitude was always the joy of each day. Thank you, God, another wonderful day. And to keep engaged in the world around her and to see as many of her friends as she could. Now, that's kind of an overview. Any questions specific about that? Or I'll go into like how she set up her caregivers. Oh, I think you're frozen, Emma.
Oh.
Any questions on that introduction of mine?
I think that's a beautiful introduction. I'd love to hear more about you said about her caregivers. Yeah.
Right. So, really, the book is about life and how what we have been calling a good death is about a good life. I believe my book is taking this idea of the good death and moving it into the sacred death. This is how Blossom handled it. But she saw this as a great opportunity coming and a great opportunity to deal with anything loose ends, to make sure that all her friends knew how much she loved her. So with her creative ways, she set up a calendar month by month. Every day had a little square, and when you came into her studio, well, that's what she called her house, the studio, because the main house, a Frank Lloyd Wright long rectangular house, was further up the hill, and her house was below it. These two houses embedded in a hill in Austin, Texas. And when you came into the studio after she got this diagnosis, you signed up for what day that month and or the next month you could come and stay with her in the evening and make sure she had her medicine at night and talk with her in the evening, help her get ready for bed, and then stay overnight, because she had this tiny little, what she called the apartment in the back. It was a little bedroom and a little bathroom. And there in the morning to help her get dressed and to make sure she had her morning medicine, many of which were, Hawaiian noni juice and supplements. Blossom was not, she was not into tubes and traditional meds, no, but when they want to give you stuff when you've got this kind of diagnosis. She was trying to practice the qualities of presence, gratitude, and compassion minute by minute. She didn't have to try or work hard. And so what she organized has come to be the original death doulas. You've heard of birth doulas, and now we also have, thanks to Suzanne O'Brien, RN in Los Angeles, we have an organization called the Death Doulas. Now they are not hospice, but they work in conjunction with hospice. They offer the socio-emotional piece. And guess what? Miss Blossom was doing it 20 years before Suzanne O'Brien invented it. These were the original caregivers, the original death doulas. And they would sign up month after month. Blossom's 3-month sentence of how much time she had left turned into 8 more months after this diagnosis. This is pretty unusual with pancreatic cancer. Yeah. But that was because of this attitude of hers, and because the women kept coming over overnight, and they just, what did she do? They watched movies, they had ice cream. She loved ice cream. And and every other week, the love of her life from back in high school, they had reunited at their 50th high school reunions, because they'd married other people, but they kind of met again then. He would come from Virginia for 2 weeks, once a month. So he'd be gone for 2 weeks, then come back for 2 weeks, then be gone for 2. And that helped keep her alive too. And about halfway through this time, she realized that her biography has to do with her relationship to the community. So this is a third purpose. So the first was about attitudes towards death that make it sacred death. And the second about a new way to organize your caregivers. We have hospice now, but they're not around much. They check in, do an assessment. They come in right at the end, unless you have gotten there early enough. That is our problem in the self-care part of my talk. That is our problem with hospice. We get there too late. And if you can get there earlier, then you might have a relationship with an actual constant person. Otherwise, you don't even get the RN till it's time for morphine continuously. So the death doulas work in conjunction with hospice. They do all the socio-emotional piece while the hospice does the medical piece, and there is some interaction. But this book doesn't focus on the medical. But she's got this idea to give to her community. The third main theme is who we are as an individual has to do with how we intersect with our community. So who Blossom was in Austin, Texas, was what her legacy was going to be to the community. And she got this idea to give something back before she died. She only had one remaining son, no other relatives. And when she wanted to start setting this up, she described it to two of her loyal soldiers, as she called them, and they were totally against it. And that she got so hurt and so angry that led her to have I can't now quite remember if it was like a mini heart attack or a mini stroke or something where she was sick. It was a kind of the first time she was sick after this diagnosis. And she was taken to hospice there at that point. So that's about halfway through the book. 21 days, I think she stayed. And when she came back, she was more determined than ever. Oh, she didn't die there. Of course not. Her attitude, that would be the fourth thing, maybe. The metaphysical attitude, well, if it's my time, spirit, no problem. But, I've got a lot to do still. So, of course, she returned herself and to her studio, and she got to work seriously on her foundation. And she created a foundation before she passed away, and had a legacy to leave, and that was what her real bequest was. She didn't leave money to her son or to her longtime boyfriend, current lover. She said, I'm going to create this foundation. It's going to work on the gift economy, and that's a whole thing that people will learn about in the book. And that's what her Jungian friends who were analysts used to making $200 an hour would not go for. They wouldn't go for a place running with no money. But she was into this gift economy. And let's see. So she got it all done legally. And throughout the book, you realize it is the job of the community of flourishing individuals in midlife or late life, later adulthood maybe, but midlife and a little, to take care of those in the community who are on the decline. They have made their main contribution. I was just talking to my rabbi, 66, and he said he is sad because he realized he's probably made his main contribution and it didn't change the world. Well, many of us will have that realization. But Blossom was not to be like that. Blossom, she wanted to have the influence of a philosopher, especially someone like Emanuel Swedenborg, who I had never even heard of until I met Blossom, but apparently a great mystic who everyone in Europe knows about. And she wanted to have that kind of broad reach. Well, I think she had it before my book, but with her book, it will be big. And so she kept strengthening this community of the flourishing with herself. And people, one time a caregiver didn't show up. And for the first time, my role changed. I took her to a doctor's appointment. I think it was her arm or her leg. Something was aching afterwards. I massaged that leg or that arm. I helped change her. In general, she and I had this, scholarly relationship, as she would call it. Why she liked me. Probably many reasons, but I came to love her. It's another level of the book, the story of this developing friendship and how it keeps deepening as we have our discussions, which again, they're never really about death and dying. This is a question I have for the book clubs in the end. How can a book on sacred dying say not one word about death and dying? That is the point, that in sacred dying, we are busy trying to live to the fullest and see what we can leave as a positive legacy for a person. Now, a question I would have to many of our boomers right now, according to a Pew Research poll, 42% of people over 65 are living alone. How are they going to handle their death and their preparation for death and dying? Can they build a community of friends the way Blossom had it built in? She just kind of put the word out and boom, there they were, Or the Jung Society in Austin, the ISIS Institute in Austin, all these different places, they put out like one email and people just volunteered to give up basically not 24 hours, but maybe 16 hours once a month to just be with her. And now what are we going to do about all these single people living alone? They might not have family available. They might not have the community contacts. So this book is a push to remind people biography and community, terribly connected, especially in late life. Get out there, stay active in your groups. And this is part 2 on the updated rules for self-care. What is the second biggest fear of those of us, maybe even before late life, maybe in midlife it starts? Getting dementia. I mean, that's everyone. I live in a place of hyper athletic people and where people are just so, learning. We've got to keep the brain going. And it's true. So all these singles, almost half the people over 65 have got to get out there into groups, into educational activities, into learning new things, because the brain will respond if we, maybe not as quickly as when we're teens or 20s or 30s, but it will respond if we push it to learn new things. That might be all I have to share about the book right now, unless you have any questions, Miss Emma.
I think that's such a beautiful way that you put that too. And I love the idea of having, there's so much emphasis these days on having birth doulas, and there's so much stigma and so much fear around death and dying that I think the idea of having a death doula to kind of guide you, if you're guided gently into this world, I think you should actually have the same courtesy, if you will, on leaving this world. And I think that's such a beautiful service, and what a gift to be able to have this time with her. And I love that you had that scholarly relationship with her, and you also had the opportunity to take over and be a caregiver for the day, to be able to provide her, and that she also didn't always take the traditional route of all the tubes and medicines and everything else, that she did have her Hawaiian lemon juice. And I love that. And it's such a beautiful mindset shift around death and dying. So I look forward to reading this. I wish I had this. During the pandemic, I had the absolute pleasure and gift of being able to take care of my husband's mom during the pandemic. And so it started out just basic things of just, going through basic feeding and dressing and taking care of and going to appointments. And as it progressed, just getting into, this is a normal part of life. And she was the sweetest soul I've ever met. She also did have dementia. And so when you were mentioning that too, I look forward to reading your book when it comes out, and it'll be nice to be able to relate on a different level. And I know your book will help so many people.
Thank you so much. I had a spontaneous moment a few days ago where I realized people in 5 years may be copying maybe some of the stuff that they read here, but they're going to add a prayer room to their living rooms or to their study or their bedroom. This is one thing that Blossom built in her studio. She had someone come in and take a corner and make it into kind of a rectangle of its own, and had gorgeous sunlight was streaming in from the windows at the side windows up, and had gorgeous pillows and benches at the wall around the 4 walls, and pillows all over the floor. And she said, "You can peek in, but no one can go in there. Only I can go in there it's my prayer room." And this was her sacred space in the house. for daily meditation. And I just had this insight about 4 days ago. I was thinking, this is what they're going to copy. They're going to copy that as a way in. So it was, yes, we had the scholarly talks, but I also felt I was an initiate. She was constantly trying to teach me what to do. She was so fun. This was, while I'm doing my dissertation, the year I'm doing my dissertation. So what people go, did you publish your dissertation? No, I'm publishing this book. That was 25 years ago. A lot happened in between. I love your summary that I hadn't connected it too much to the issue of self-care and dementia. But of course, after the foundation was all legally set up, paid for, incorporated, money set aside, blah, blah, executive director appointed and everything, then she kind of went, my work is done. I can die now.
Mm.
I think she tried to protect my feelings. The weekend before, she told me, no, I still have a little bit to do. But about 5 days later, she told another long-term friend, I was a short-term close friend, I'm done. I can go now. And she had like one last, some people may read this and that's what they might think. Oh, so the sacred dying is partying till you die? Not quite. Not quite. But I do describe a couple of events that she held because she wanted all her friends there. Like, for example, she called everybody up. If I should keep talking about this, or do I want to switch to the other topic?
No, finish your story. Okay. I love it.
She called everybody up the day before Christmas. Not my holiday, but of course I usually do something with a friend. She said, what are you doing for Christmas? I said, oh, I'm having a little potluck with one girlfriend. And she said, well, bring your food and your girlfriend and come over. She called everyone, all her caregivers, everyone she knew, and told them to come over for Christmas party at 3 p.m. You couldn't move. That house was so packed. So this was such an event. But you see, it's not a party because, of course, in the middle of this party, well, maybe 2/3 of the way through, one of the close friends had everyone line up around the boundaries of each room, snaking around through each room. We were all holding hands, and we did a 5-minute group who meditative chant. Everything was based on her knowledge of Indian, classical Hindu, and Buddhist philosophy, which I failed to mention in the beginning. She had originally been an art historian and artist, and then at midlife became a philosopher. And this is what was so magnetic, I believe, for people, was this wisdom that she had, the wisdom of the universe. And she would call, you came over with a problem, she had it solved before you spoke because she could read you. I might use a chart, an astrology chart, but she or someone else, a deck or a hand, or 45 minutes before my last 10 of communication. But she could read souls with this wisdom of the universe that she had. Her favorite topics were time, kind of the meaninglessness of the Western idea of time. She and I did not talk about that much, but she talked about that a lot when she spoke at groups or at parties. And what else? Mythological figures. She once said to me, well, you have some Artemis in you after all. I didn't know what she meant by that. What? But on the other hand, it was like, I said, Blossom, I came in. We got to turn on NPR. They're having a great talk about the goddesses right now. Well, this is one time that she appeased me. Normally, she would tell me, no way. She was determined everything that happened. But she turned it on. And after maybe 5-6 sentences, she looked over at me, and she always first looked at each other. We're kind of smiling, nodding. Yeah, we going along. I think they were talking about Aphrodite. And then she looks at me. She goes, didn't say a word. She just turns it off. I went, what? And she's like, we already know all that. but that's how she just assumed that, she had the wisdom of the world inside of her. She was there to interpret it to everybody else. Anyway, yes, I look forward to having it in my hot little hand. When I was a kid in college in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the book du jour was The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm. Short little book, 60 to 90 pages. Every single person had a copy under their arm or in their backpack. And so that was my image of a small book that was packed, that people would just carry it right in their purse, their tote, whatever. And but now I'm realizing each scene, each chapter, they will be thinking about, and so they might, take their time over it. So there, I think I've spilled too many beans.
Well, that's beautiful. Well, let's talk a little bit more into your updated new rules for great self-care.
Okay. Yep. Well, this used to be pretty standard. And if you opened a text, it used to be 5 or 6 things. Sleep right, eat right, exercise, don't drink and smoke. Well, don't smoke ever. And if you're going to drink, in moderation. And about the 1990s, after the cognitive revolution of the 80s, we added to that list and monitor your thoughts. So it went to about 6 things, and now it has exploded into behaviors, especially around how we treat our bodies and our brains. And so these are great rules for great self-care as we age, because that is where the population is right now. And that is why I believe my book on Blossom and Sacred Dying will be popular, because, just we have this lopsided upside down triangle with all this huge generation up here, and then these restricting. We thought the millennials would also have a lot of babies, but not quite. So, well, too much has changed in the world. Anyway, so the first rule now is really get the help you need. You don't get rid of this illusion that you can do it on your own. You can lead yourself to the end of your life minutes. And that also has to do with avoiding social isolation, because this is the big problem we have. The retirement communities develop to avoid the social isolation. And even in those communities, on the weekends, where there's not much programming, people feel completely alienated in these places, in their little apartment. So what is the importance of this? Well, we have seen from the CT scans, talking lights up different areas of the brain. Lighting up areas of the brain that have to do with talking and social connection have to do with memory. Keep the hippocampus pumping. That's what we need to do. The connections are key, so we can still remember those names of our friends. And that's when my husband said he wanted to check out, because all of a sudden he couldn't remember anymore the names of people he would meet around Gloucester, Virginia. He knew them, but he couldn't remember their names, and it just upset him. Okay, so that's the main first thing. Get the help you need and avoid social isolation. Number 2, exercise your brain. Read, be social. That's kind of a review. Get your hearing checked. People are shocked the first time they get their hearing checked. Though I didn't know I had 45% hearing loss in that ear. Guess what? Hearing has a lot to do with memory. You want to age well? You have got to keep your hearing sharp. What happens when we don't hear accurately is we invent the context. So we can be out in left field and the other person is still on this topic. And don't be afraid to learn new things. Exercise your brain. Number 3, exercise your body. Walking is the great baseline exercise for people who have, use it or lose it, who have lost it. So walking they can do, hopefully. And those who can't, they now have things like chair yoga, chair this, chair that, or, even chair doing the resistance training. But under, of course, exercising your body is proper nutrition. Miss Emma's one of her specialties, being an integrative medicine specialist, but also a nutrition specialist. And what is the latest on that? Emma, you correct me if I'm not quite up. The most cup of caffeinated drink a day. The absolute most. That is so hard to follow. But, 1 or less cup of coffee a day. Beets, chili peppers, ginkgo, vitamin D, blueberries, green tea. You can have 2 cups of that. I'm the cruciferous, or the vegetables like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. Now, I don't know what hyperbaric oxygen is, but this would be on most of the lists right now on the latest on the body. Do you know what that is, Emma?
Hyperbaric oxygen?
Yeah.
It reminds me of scuba diving. But I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look that one up.
I'm wondering if it has to do with those CPAP machines that we've noticed from the research, the people who use those and get the deeper sleep. I'm wondering if it happens to do with better sleep because, of course, brain and body and sleep all connected. Oh, and to finish that list, vitamin C, if you aren't getting it in your fruits and vegetables, red bell peppers, strawberries, apparently really good for memory. Well, who knows that? I mean, okay, we got to avoid inflammation because guess what? Inflammation can slow down the brain and of course, influence and harm memory. Turmeric, omega-3s, eliminate processed sugar, maintain your teeth. Oh my God, teeth and gums. Did you know, everybody out there, gums, so connected with memory loss. Gum disease, I always tell people, teeth and gums connected to the heart, connected to the brain. I mean, you cannot get out of this triangle. You have to keep all 3 going. Okay. Get the help you need. Avoid social isolation. Exercise your brain, exercise your body. Avoid falling. Well, nice to say, my mother would say. How do I avoid falling? Well, you have to go to balance classes, balance activities. You have to wear good shoes, not only that fit right, but that are not worn out. You're 2 years old. Is your house safe? Get your vision checked. If you ever have a fall, have a CT scan. And any exam you have must be sent this copy from the specialist to the PCP and or neurologist if you go to a neurologist regularly. Okay, sleep hygiene, that's what we're calling it now. This is kind of old. Just go to bed at the same time every day, get up at the same time every day. No clocks in your room, because then if you see what time it is when you get up to the bathroom in the middle of the night, then you stay awake in bed, counting how many more minutes you're still awake before you fall back to sleep. If you have trouble sleeping, no naps. The earlier you exercise in the day, the better for your metabolism, but maybe it's also better for the brain. Probably. Okay, this is kind of like avoid falling, number 6. Stay out of the hospital. This is how you take great self-care, because unfortunately, you can get, I got to get the right word, I think, what is the word for it? It's like hospital-associated disabilities, but stay out of the hospital, always bring an advocate. If you must go, bring your updated meds list. They go, oh, we have it right here. Well, guess what? That's 5 years old. Almost always 5 years old. When you're in the hospital, tell them I'm not following that rule about not getting up and moving around. Get up, move around, read your discharge directions as thoroughly as you can, have the advocate read them too, and reschedule with your PCP immediately. And okay, now here's about aging well. People will feel better 7, if your wishes are going to be followed and you know and trust someone who's going to make sure they're going to follow these. So you want to do your advanced directive or your DNR and or the DNR part of the do not resuscitate part, but just put all your wishes in the advanced directive. Then you can kind of breathe those last 15, 20 years. We know in our culture, in general, women outlive their husbands 15 years. So, and what is the male average life expectancy is 78 and a half, approximately, maybe 0.4. So women live to 91. And this is especially true for Black and white and Hispanic women who made it to 50 with no internal organ damage, meaning nothing inside of you was diseased before 50. You're living to 90, so take care of yourself, because anytime you go have a doctor's appointment, doesn't matter what kind of a doctor, write down your agenda, write down your list of what you need to talk about. Advocate, have your priorities. Don't let them run the session. You know your body better than they do. You tell the specialist what they need to hear. And treat the office staff well. This is very critical. You want that scan from somewhere else to be in the right file. You want everything organized. Okay, big topic. 9, medications. I had a PCP in Gloucester, Virginia. First thing he did, he'd get the person's updated medication list. He goes, why are you on 3 blood pressure medicines? He would get it to 1. Why are you on 3 different statins? He would get it to 1. On and on. He reduced it down to a basic 3, 4, or 5, the most. Not this 15 medicines a day. This is another reason people have the balance or dizzy or those problems with the body, and another problem with the cognitive piece, all these over medication that we're doing right now. I know they're trained that way, but you can retrain the medical profession. This is on falls. Hospitalization associated disabilities. That's what falling leads to. That's why they're so terrible. That was a note before. Okay, 10, avoid hazardous substances. Now, by that, we, of course, mean in the old idea, drugs and alcohol. But in the new idea, we mean mold, chemoradiation, if you can, carbon monoxide, and the heavy metals of mercury, lead, and aluminum. Read every package. You do not want anything with mercury, lead, or aluminum. We also don't want, I think it's pronounced phthalates, even though it's spelled PHTHALATES, phthalates or parabens. We don't want these things in our food. Okay. The main thing about why they always started with drugs and alcohol are why? Marijuana and alcohol, they slow the hippocampus. We do not want to encourage the dementia. That was the saddest part of COVID for me. I started watching more TV. And I know what it's doing to my brain. And yet it's tough to break that habit. All right. That was my update on great self-care. But if you want me to continue some more, here are some positives on nutrition. I'm sure Emma knows all of these. Eat high quality calories. Eat clean protein at each meal. Eat the healthy fats, meaning nuts, seeds, avocados, walnuts. Eat smart carbs, colorful fruits and vegetables. Avoid this foursome. We used to call it the whites: bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice. Really, not much nutritional value there. Yes, in some, like an Ezekiel piece of bread, you can get 5 grams of protein, but still, that's because it's the ancient grains. And use these spices: pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon, garlic, cloves, and turmeric. Most recently, 2 things you would never think on an increase the wellness of aging and the brain and memory that were new to me. Saunas. Yes, saunas are great for skin. Oh my God, keeping the skin on the décolletage, the upper chest, and the face way advanced. But saunas, guess what? they are a hidden bonus for memory. Who would have thought that? The brain likes to sweat. It doesn't experience it the way the body does. And then the last thing I just learned about memory was, I hope I can illustrate, going horizontally, vertically, side to side, a couple times a day with your eyes. Something about this kind of stimulation to the optic nerve stimulates the hippocampus. Yeah, just doing that a couple times a day. All right. So some repeat of the old rules, but it is a different kind of approach to aging well, to great self-care combined, that we're protecting our memory and our brain a little bit more than we used to. I'm in.
Oh. I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think it's really great. And I think it also, it was a great way to tie into your first topic about death and dying, and taking these new approaches and figuring out new ways that we can live life. And I know the past couple of years have really taken us really out of the social norms, and they've really, talked about social isolation. That's huge, and that was a big thing.
Sure. No wonder we've seen so much drinking and drug overdoses, opiate overuse again.
Yeah,
from this isolation.
And I know some people use drugs and alcohol as a way to escape, to lose that to kind of numb themselves from the rest of the world. And that's really, whether you're introverted or extroverted, humans in nature are communal. And when you take away the ability to connect with people, Zoom is great. We have come leaps and bounds in at least being able to see someone face to face. Though what's interesting is that we as humans are energetic beings, and where our body ends, our energy field starts. And do you know how far away from our bodies our energy field goes? It's 6 feet.
Oh.
Remember during the pandemic, they told us to be 6 feet away from everybody. Correct. So not only were we escaping everybody's sneezes, which is a plus, the minus part of it was that we were not interacting with each other's energy fields. Oh. And so we missed the connection of having that social, that social interaction, our way of connecting with each other's energy fields. And that's one of the ways that we connect communally as well. Not only are we exchanging all different kinds of cues, we're also exchanging energy. And that's one of the biggest things coming out of the pandemic, that we're just now getting back to. And I was reading in the New York Times the other day, they were saying that definitely lots of things coming out of the pandemic, but one of the things was that the average age of death had decreased. So the average lifespan had decreased, mostly because of COVID. Also, educationally, they had been working for decades to bring up education scores, and the last 2 years alone put us right back at square one.
I saw that last night. Yeah,
lots of ways that we can, and I know coming out of the pandemic, we just have to find a new normal, a new sense of normal. So I think these are both really great tips. Both your topics of a new approach to death and dying, and also new rules for that great self-care, and they both go hand in hand. So thank you so much for sharing this space and this energy, and you're such a beautiful wealth of knowledge. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
Oh, it's been my great pleasure. Thank you, Miss Emma, for inviting me. Good luck with your series.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode and sharing this space and time with me. I hope you got some great new insights, and if you did, please leave a review, add a comment, question, and/or suggestion, and share with a friend.